Hello, I'm Morris Kohansky, Wilderness Living Skills and Survival Instructor specializing in the boreal forest. We have a series of DVDs. There is a whole bunch of them covering you might say, a great deal of Canada. I compared the flora of the Laurentians and the flora of Alberta, and what I found growing in the Laurentians, which is a great part of maybe even the Appalachians, you might say, and then the Rocky Mountains and the other extreme. And if the plants appeared in both places, they ended up on this list that ended up being covered here, which is about 250 plants. Now, I have gone to Utah, I have gone to Minnesota, southern Ontario, I've gone as far as the Beaufort Sea in the Arctic, and on and on. And those 250 plants, pretty well, you might say that knowing them, you know an awful lot about the plants that you will find in such a diverse region. I also spent time in the UK and in Sweden. And what I knew about the flora in my part of the world here in Alberta, I could run plants courses in those two environments. So if you come from the state of New York, and I say, here, learn about our plants, here are the DVDs, you likely will say, well, these plants probably don't grow where I come from, therefore I don't think I'll bother. That is a big mistake. At any rate, people will often ask about good information. Now, from my perspective, when I look at a plant, I'll say, okay, now I know what that plant is. What are all its uses? Now, generally what happens is that you will find that the uses for that plant, whether it's edible, medicinal, or magical, or useful. When we say useful, can I use it for string? Can I use it to make something other than something that goes through my gut or whatever? But at any rate, all these sort of things, in my literature, all these things end up in the same chapter. Whereas with most other people, if they're talking about herbal medicines, you've got one emphasis and not much is said about the other applications. If we're talking about edible plants, they don't mention the medicinal applications. If you can extract a fiber to make a cord out of it, the herbal books don't mention anything about that. But when I deal with the plant, I try to cover every possible use. For example, you might talk about cattail, which everybody is aware of. You probably write a book almost, well, not as big as this, but anyway, a 100-page book, probably on everything that you could do with cattails if you went into the minute detail. Well, we have the DVDs, but we also have this rather unusual book, which I often call the best-known secret of Western Canada, and that's Rogers Herbal Manual. Now, Robert Dale Rogers, from day one, the moment that computers would accept information, he began to collect the information, and so he would have everything he could collect on each and every plant. And when he became involved with us, we got access to this, so that you might call this a form of encyclopedia. Because when you look up cattail here, you might find maybe there are 8 pages devoted to it, which is far more than you find anywhere else. And no matter what the application, it's under the one title. A lot of people somehow don't expect that, and they complain a little bit about it. But I figure that once I learn how to identify bunchberry, I want to know every single thing I can do about bunchberry. This is the encyclopedic article that tells you everything that we more or less know about that plant where I live here, you might say. There are no pictures. And a lot of people will say, well, where are the pictures? You get yourself a good book that tends to identify the plants, so you know what it is. They don't say very much about the uses, and get it and work from there, because this would be much too unwieldy. It would be much too costly as it is. It's kind of, a lot of people consider this a bit much, and a lot of people shy away from the price because they very often sort of figure that information should come cheaply. But at any rate, if you're wanting a single document, now I know my way around books. There is no other book that I know of that deals with virtually 250 plants like this one. But once you know the Latin name, you go look it up in a modern book on wild plants, and then work back and forth because that will tell you how to identify it. Or you go to the DVDs that give you a picture, a live picture of what that plant is about.